10 o'clock. So I'm going to close our workshop portion of the meeting and open up the regular meeting of the Port of Coupeville Board of Commissioners for July 13th, 2022 at 10 a.m. And the item on the agenda would be to call the meeting to order, which I've done. And now it's the item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. So do one of you want to start off the Pledge of Allegiance?
I think it's your turn, John.
Thank you. Okay, so that means I need to stand up, get my flag. There we go. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of
the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it
stands,
stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
There we go. Get rid of the flag there. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Roll call. David, are you here?
I am here from District 1.
And Patrick?
Commissioner 3, Patrick Kennedy, attending.
And John Mashazik, District 2. So we got that, and then we have staff. I noticed we've got our usual crowd in the Jim Davis house.
Hey, John, did you actually switch the power on your mic? Because I think you're
Yeah.
still.
I did.
Okay, so the power is on.
Yep. So it's not really working well?
No, it's not. The volume is very, very low.
It's gotten low.
Yeah.
It wasn't before.
Maybe is this better?
No, I actually think you're still working through your laptop. For some reason, I don't think it's switched over because that lapel worked really well last time.
Well. Yeah.
Talk again?
Is that better now?
Yes.
Perfect. There you go.
Yes.
Oh, I took it out. I disconnected it. Okay.
What's
So any item 5 is any changes to the agenda?
No.
I have none.
Okay, same here. So let's do item 6, which is to take action on our minutes and vouchers. If somebody will do the minutes, I'll do the vouchers, okay? Somebody want to make a motion to approve our vouchers from the 22nd and the 8th, June 8th and June 22nd?
minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the June 8th and June 22nd minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Now I'll read the vouchers. So I make a motion that we approve the voucher approval document dated July 13th for vouchers number 22-0701 through 22-0726 for a total of $21,010.04. The electronic fund transfer 0701 and 0702 for a total of $25,127.08. And the electronic vouchers of EFT 0703 through 0705 for $16,965.05. And oops, did I leave out? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay, for a total amount of $63,102.17. All in, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Don, I got a little confused there, only because the way this is printed out under electronic vouchers, that was on the front page of the document approval document. And then I turned to the second page and the same dollar amount was there with the all this Department of Labor, but there were no EFT numbers, Don. And so I'm easily confused about what I just did. You're not audio.
Oops, I see what happened.
Are we going to need a new voucher document or?
Let's see here.
Do we need EFT numbers for all those items listed, like Department of Labor and Employment?
Okay. Yeah, I'll add the EFT numbers before sending it off. It on the bottom of it says 10 electronic vouchers, so we'll be fine.
Is the overall amount correct though? That's the important thing.
Yeah.
The amount was same. It just didn't have the electronic voucher numbers.
Yeah, I'll add the 5 missing numbers before sending it off.
So we're going to approve the voucher approval document, including the
It would be EFT 0710, is that correct? That would be the total number of vouchers?
The EFT.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, through, yep. 0710, David, that's true.
The motion was to only approve them through 0705, so we need to amend the motion.
So actually we need a new motion with a second to do that amendment. So I make a motion that we amend our July 13th voucher approval document to include the electronic fund transfers numbers through 0706 through 0710 with the amount remaining the same. Do I have a second?
I'll second that one.
Okay, let's move on that motion. All in favor of that amendment motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now we need to approve the initial motion, amended motion. So all in favor of approving our voucher approval document July 13th as amended. Everybody in favor of that, say aye. Does that sound true? Aye. I heard an aye from David. Patrick, you're muted. Are you having problem with your audio, Patrick? I got the hand signal. So the motion is unanimously approved for the voucher approval document July 13th to be approved. Okay. Moving on. It's now item 7, which is public comment. Time set aside for members of public to speak to the board. Areas of concern, interest, or items on the agenda. We'll take the information under advisement. To ensure your comments are recorded, please state your name and city of residence and limit comments to 5 minutes. Hopefully, if you had any documents, you'd send them over to the board executive director prior to speaking. Okay, Chris, do you have anybody that's chomping at the bits to speak?
No public has attended this meeting so far.
Okay. That's a sign of lack of controversy, right?
I hope so.
So, okay, moving on from public comment, we'll go to 8, which is a financial update. So 8.1, Dawn, financial update.
Okay. Covered up everything because I had already updated our voucher run, so the train will be your email approval will have the correct report on it. So our available funds has a total of $161,610.94. And the investment savings account still has the remaining $700,000. Our IDD tax collections have increased to 753,8. Oh, I can't say it. I said it yesterday because I was so impressed, but it's increased to 753,853. I can't even say it.
2,800 blah, blah.
753,000.
883.
Sounds good.
It's a big number.
I know.
The Port of, we don't normally see big numbers like that.
I was very impressed. I was like, and that is almost 50% of what we budgeted for at our 6-month mark. So I think that our budget versus actual, it came out to about 47%. So I was pretty impressed with that.
So you look at our investment account, you look at our IDD account, and we are over 1.5 million.
And a reminder to the taxpayers, I mean, they're getting, this money is dedicated to our capital improvement projects that are protecting these historic icons. So it's money well brought in and money that'll be well spent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not to mention the fact that we, had an awful lot of reimbursements for our storm damage.
Mhm.
And we still have the one from the state left, correct? Am I correct? Or are we getting that?
But we're going to talk about that.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay. So, but we're in good shape, so.
Good. Yeah, and Chris, I would hope that, anytime we can get matching funds to have that IDD money deliver more bang for the buck, so to speak. I mean, that's great. I know there's reporting on these grants and whatnot, but getting matching funds is a nice little boost in what you can do with IDD funds. So,
Well, these ones were insurance claims, but
we're still, or sort of.
yeah.
Well, we have 6 active grants sitting out there waiting to be used. So I think we're taking advantage of the grants.
Just waiting on permitting, right?
David, Patrick, any questions on the profit and loss year to date?
Yeah, I actually do. Thanks for asking, John. So I'm looking at the year-to-date income statement, and what was I'm interested in the, in the entire district, of course, but looking specifically at Green Bank Farm, it seems that it's profitable for the 6 months. And there's, it includes, where was it here? The dedicated project of $22,000. What was that again? Outside the routine maintenance under the CRM Green Bank Farm.
No, we have the rest of the parking lot lights going in today. We have
Okay.
the lighting that's going in today and tomorrow.
Yep, all that. Okay.
What was the
I
other?
think there was also your heating unit that went in.
Okay. So that's 22. What was it? 22. And then what's the refunds reimbursements for 15.5 up
The
under
lighting.
miscellaneous? The lighting. So, kind of netting those out even. Is it accurate to think that Green Bank Farm's getting to break even?
Well, I think you really have to, if you're looking for an absolute number, we're going to have to start slicing in, because I started coding labor years ago.
We have some port expenses to put in there. Yeah, I mean, it would be.
So
Yeah,
I wanted to know which SBUs were producing revenue and which weren't a profit.
yeah,
We
yeah,
really wanted to dig down, Patrick, if we could, but we kind of gave up on that.
yeah.
So, building our, yeah.
If you allocated cost, the overall cost,
Yeah.
it's probably still a little under if you allocated those costs, but independent of that, yeah, it's whatever proportion that would be. Good. Okay.
I think when you compare it to the wharf in producing revenue, not profit revenue, the Green Bank farm would definitely be higher
Okay.
because of the rents, and the event revenues. So, yeah, maybe
Okay.
something to do a deep analysis, and take a year and really dig deep and see. But it would be a snapshot in time, right?
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Patrick, it'd be interesting if a couple of things could be done at the farm that would take it up to the break even or even into a positive return on investment, right?
I think I think that's doable
Yeah.
on a couple of fronts. It's even adding in that corporate, the port cost somehow.
Yeah.
That'd be a goal for the next year or two. Yeah.
I think when you guys review rents and we continue to ramp up our event activity, we're still undervalued as far as what we charge for events, $1,500 all inclusive. That should be at least 2,000. It was something I wanted to get on the agenda early this year, but it just kept falling down. There's a lot of potential in both places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Good. Okay. Thank you for the input.
thanks for bringing it up.
Okay, David, any questions or input from you about financial reporting?
I really don't. I think things seem to look good and straightforward and
Accurate and
current. So no, I have nothing to add, offer, or question at this point.
in that case, then let's move on to item 9, Executive Director Report. Chris?
So I'll go over broadband and wharf in the next two sections, so I'm not repeating myself. The first thing I want to talk about is what you mentioned earlier. That is the grant from the state. I did meet with Rick Larson and Chris Eagle and another gentleman who is heading up their infrastructure projects. We have a lot of experience. We had a big meeting earlier this week. I don't even know what day this is. And we met with Mayor Hughes and Marie Shimada from Edie's Landing. And one of the big topics was this state money that we had received for the water and sewer line. Let me give you an update. Where it stands right now is somewhere along the lines, without the port knowing, this went from a water and sewer line project to a water line project. This got routed through the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and I finally made contact with the representatives from EPA to start the dialogue. So what this means to us is that working with Chris Dingle and Rick Larson's office, we have to figure out how to turn this from a water line into a sewer line project to qualify, first qualifying round. We think we can do that, and Chris is pretty confident that because there are other projects that got reclassified like this around the state, that we can work that part of it out. The second challenge is the fact that pretty much 65 to 70% of the costs of the sewer line that would be a part of that grant has already occurred. Now, of course, I pleaded my case with Larson that we had to work down for 3 months. We couldn't wait any longer. We had to go forward and fix it. And we did it after it was approved by Biden. So President Biden. So that is another point of contention. But there are also other ports and other entities that are facing the same issue. So right now I have gone through and accomplished all the administrative needs, most of them, to get us on grant.gov and get us in the system. And now we are waiting for Chris Dingle and his team with Rick Larson to work with EPA to make sure that we qualify. So there is a chance, I'm gonna say it out loud, there is a chance that we may not get that money. Now, of course, we've paid everything. Here are the projects on the sewer line that we're still waiting to do. And these may be covered if they reclassify it. That is brand new utility boxes at the front and the back of the causeway, those wooden boxes that are completely debilitated. Those will be replaced. The pump out is starting to be intermittent and it's working. That's part of the water and sewer line. And Kelly has been tasked with getting a hold of a vendor to see if we have the ability to replace the holding tank and maceration units and pump at the wharf as well, to see if that can be enhanced. Because if they come through and say, sorry, we got you switched from water to sewer, but now, since you already did the sewer line, we're not gonna cover that, then we wanna have costs available to take advantage of whatever we can. And the goal, and I was told this point blank, was you need to spend all 136,000. And my response back was, we can do that if the EPA goes back to the original plan of a water and sewer line. And they reimburse us for the project we've already completed. So those are two challenges. One is possibly doable. The other one seems to be very difficult, but it's known and there's discussions taking place. So that's where we are with that. I mentioned earlier that we have Northwest Electric is out here now doing the rest of the parking lot lights and the security lighting. Very excited about that. The playground. I was informed yesterday that the new section got dug out and that the equipment is put together. The border that was ordered didn't even cover the small section of the playground. So I don't know what happened in the map there, but there were 33 units and it didn't even border the small playground area. So I need to talk to Kelly about this, find out what happened, where are we going to go from here? Because I just learned about this last month, really about 6 o'clock last night. So there may be more conversation to be had as far as the playground and the border. Now we already had the budget to do more chips. We only did a portion of the wood chips. So there'll be another order from Mallards, just to give you a heads up. But we need to solve that situation with the border. Outside of that, it's going to be an amazing upgrade. And we're touting it on social media. When it gets done, we'll have a ribbon cutting and Commissioner Kennedy said he'd like to be there to do that. So that'll be really fun. And we're also, as you know, the paper's involved. So some good publicity there. We're starting the deep mowing at the farm. This is always controversial, so just heads up, board, that you're probably gonna get a call, like you probably do every year, maybe. You have the hikers, the dog walkers that are begging us to mow. You have the Audubon Society say do not mow until July 8th. And you have the preservationists and conservationists who become a land trust saying, don't you dare mow at all. So just know, you're probably gonna get an email or a phone call because we are starting to mow this week. Outside of that, of broadband and wharf, you guys have any questions on the ED report?
I do, hang on. What was the, what's happening on the pond? I mean, it sound like we're.
Right now is Kristen is been chasing this company down. They're a company that can bring a large truck and they could literally drain the pond down again, which I was amazed at how smooth that went. And they would literally vacuum out all the sediment that has built up on the side of the pond. But for some reason, they are just completely backed up. And Kristen finally did get a hold of them after trying for several weeks. And they're just backed up. So they're not going to get to us for a while. And they're the only option that we know of. And we've been working with Roger Signan with Commercial Fire on this. So he's in the know. He knows what companies can do what we need. So it's just, again, coming down to that vendor issue that we have. So, even Kelly trying to find new doors for the wharf. I mean, that has been next to impossible. But that's what's happening with the pond. Right now, I've heard nothing as far as any of our 5 farms having any issues with farm water, including the pea patch. Of course, the pea patch is running off the well. But that's what's happening with the pond. So all the brakes have been fixed, the pipes have been fixed. We've got new signage up where all the valves are. So That part is really cool. Any other questions?
Any
Chris,
news on the gentleman who's farming the cattle and the chickens?
Yeah, Mark from One Willow Farm.
Mhm.
I know his animals are thriving out there. He is also wanting to rent one of the hoop houses, but you know, it's just typical. You know, hey, we want that hoop house. We go in there, we clean it out. We asked Dorcas to move her stuff out because she's been camping out there, and then it never happens. It's just one, you know, it's just a bunch of. There's just a huge lack of follow-up with certain community members that we deal with. And there was one point where he wanted to come in and really take all the grass in the One Road Triangle and bale it for hay to feed the cattle, which I thought was a great idea. I promised he'd be out here in a couple days. That was 2 weeks ago. You know, so, but as far as the farms are doing, they're doing well. The dahlia grower is just going crazy. The pea patch is full. Kim is doing very well. She's talking to Mark about doing a harvest fair this year. They seem to be thriving out there, and I've heard of no water issues so far. So
It's early.
It's early. Well, it's mid-July, so typically by now, you know, April, May, we're fixing busted lines, and you know, but so far so good.
and Chris, I'm not seeing it on the report, but I thought there was some mention of a little creation of a parking lot near the causeway on something, you know, calling a parklet, you know.
No, that's under the causeway. That's there next to what's that street that runs right between the buildings next to the Dutch?
Touch of Dutch.
Yeah, what is that street? The little one-way street?
I don't know if it even has a name. Does
Yeah,
it?
It has a name, but I can't remember it either, but it's only one.
That has already been approved by the town. If you go there, you'll see paint on the ground. That is gonna receive some cement structures. It's gonna be closed off. There's gonna be benches with fresh planted flowers and a bike rack. And that is just in the process of being done. So that is gonna be called Parklet. And they were hoping to have that done here in the next month, but we'll see.
Okay. And any resolution on restrooms?
No, I had a very heart-to-heart with Molly, and the bottom line is that we are not going to be able to put any porta potties around town. Absolutely not in the lawyer's parking lot. That was an absolute no. That was a great idea. It was also a no in about 3 or 4 other areas that we suggested, such as in the parking lot for the rec center, in the grass area across from the closed down public restrooms. The answer is no. What Molly's done is she's ordered signs, but again, they're not getting done in time, not her fault. Out of a vendor at Oak Harbor, we sat down and we looked at this map that she had drawn up because she knew we were, you know, having issues with our bathrooms. And what she's going to do is, I made a suggestion to her that she put a sign that says restrooms with an arrow that points people up the Front Street access road. Because she had people rerouting all the way around. And I'm like, why would you do that? They're downtown here. They're coming out of restaurants. Why don't you put one right there on that post? She goes, oh my God, it's a great idea. So she said she's going to order that. We are closing the restrooms down at 6 p.m. One of the issues was Long stays there till 9 o'clock at night. People using the restrooms, you know, after we clean them at 5:30 p.m. And then when Loretta comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning, they're thrashed. So that has been rectified and taken care of. We actually lock them up, lock them down, except for boaters and Long. Of course, Long uses the employee restroom. She doesn't use the public restrooms. So at this point, we're hanging on. We're doing okay. No more issues have been reported. I think closing it down at 6 helped. But the fact of the matter is, there is no long-term solution for public restrooms in downtown Coupeville. So they're hoping that signage does the trick.
What's the difference between employee restroom and public restrooms at the wharf?
Yeah, so behind the wharf manager's shack there, if you're looking at that door, there's a door to the right. And it's the back side of that shack, and that has tools, and it actually has a vacuum flush marine head in it. And that's where the employee restroom is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay.
Any other questions on the executive director report? Okay. In that case, we'll go to item 10, which is old business. 10.1 discussion broadband phase 2 update.
Yeah, let me get you up to speed. So I've met twice now with Seth Wilson from Schmellick and Davis. I'm so glad we have him. I mean, you talk about an attorney who has learned this business pretty quickly working with Petrichor. We're very lucky to have him in our court. So met with Petrichor and Seth twice, also had conversations with the Public Works Board, and here's an update. So basically, we are going to have to break this project down into several phases in order to adhere to the procurement process. The first phase, and we're going to be introducing a resolution to the board, our first meeting in August, which is a resolution to approve, and we don't need to go through the public procurement process for this, but it's going to be what's called the personal services component of this major project, and that is the design. So this is where the letters of intent that are sent in from Zipley and Astound will be presented to the board with pros and cons, and the board will choose which of those they would like to award the personal services contract to. This will likely, the one you choose will likely be the company that bids on the construction project. And that's the second phase. That we will have to go through a public procurement process. We will have to take it, once the designs are completed, that gets wrapped up into a public bidding process, and then that will be actually executed, managed by the port. Of course, with Zipley, you know, helping us along the way. They have to. This is not my specialty. So it's not what we thought, gentlemen, where we are going to be choosing an ISP and they design it, they build it, they maintain it, they, you know, execute it, they sell it. It is not going to be that way. It is going to be phase one. We need to choose a designer, and that'll be done through the LOI. Then we need to go out to bid for who's going to construct it. And then we need to go out to bid for a third phase, which is, again, personal services component of who is going to maintain it and manage it. That does not have to be a public process. Now, most likely, the ISP who was chosen to design it is going to most likely be probably the only bidder for who's going to build it, and therefore who is going to maintain it. But it's a process we have to go through to satisfy the procurement process for this project, because it is so large. With that said, there's a lot of detail, and I won't go into all of it, but things such as whoever builds this has to be able to charge prevailing wage. Because the port is 100% owner and not less than 50, they have to do it with prevailing wage. So, and what was the other one I just want to show you guys? That's pretty much it. Those are the big ones. We're working on something called a subrecipient, but I'm not quite sure I understand how that works exactly.
Something called a what?
Subrecipient. In other words, David, we were trying to figure out a way, if the port was the one who was quote unquote designing, building, maintaining, could we hire companies underneath us to do that as a subrecipient and therefore not go through the standard procurement process? But it doesn't look like that's going to be an option, but Seth is going to research that, and then we have a meeting on August the 2nd, and he's going to present his findings. So on that meeting, which I believe is August the 15th or August 10th, I will have a lot more information for you, as well as a resolution to get this ball rolling. As far as the PWB grant and board, they still don't have a contract out, but they say they're close. So once that contract gets sent out, we have to choose that person who's going to design it, and we have to have a IRU in place before we sign the contract. So once things start to break, they're going to break very fast. But there are so many moving parts. There's so many details, but this is where we are right now. So everything is still moving forward. And I think that if one of these ISPs who submitted an LOI can get close to what they promised, this is going to be a good thing for the port as well as the community. And I'll explain that on August the 10th. So that's where we are with broadband right now. You guys have any questions? Or I know it's difficult, but I get done with a meeting and I'm like, I got a page of notes and I'm like, what? And I'm having to do research and a lot going on.
So Chris, I just like to ask if you're comfortable with the moving pieces and you feel capable of, continuing to manage the project given its changes.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate your thought. I don't have the background. It's like I can't learn to be an attorney. I can't learn to be an engineer, and I can't learn to be definitely an engineer and a project manager for a broadband project. But having a little bit of experience and going through a couple builds as a marketing person doesn't hold a lot of weight. But Petrichor is really good at what they do. Seth is really good. He's already taken Petrichor through at least one of these processes from start to end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as long as we continue to make sure that the rest of the 0.09 funds are supporting this project management and negotiating process, and that we do have the funds set aside from the PWB grant, which we will, then we have a good team to help us through this. And I will tell you that even Petrichor and those consultants that they work with, they're all learning like we are as far as what the PWB is going to find in these. So I feel really comfortable. I feel confident. Could I manage this by myself? There is no way. It's like what Seth and Kara said in our meeting. They said, you know what? You can't do this. There's companies that do this. There are teams of 8 to 10 who do these projects, and it's really just you and us. So I feel comfortable. They're not expecting anything from me that is way over my head. They're very patient with me when I say, okay, what does that mean? And especially Seth, he'll take his time and say, Chris, this is what this means. This is what we think. So I feel confident moving forward. I think we have a good team. The money's there. And I think the community needs this. And I'm in touch with 2 community members, one Mark, who's attending today, and another, making sure that those addresses that we discussed are still on the list. So there we are. We're moving forward, but it's a steep learning curve.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
No, thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
And I would encourage David and Patrick, look for my WPPA broadband report that we had our meeting this week, and it was mind-blowing. I mean, a lot of ports were on that meeting, some commissioners, some executive directors. I mean, I heard some things like some ports, the need is so great, they were awarded a Public Works Board grant, but obviously that has not filtered down paperwork-wise to the port. And they just said, the heck with it, and they started building.
Mm.
I mean, they're counting their chickens before they're hatched, but they're basically saying the need is so great, we can't wait for the new manager of the Public Works or manager of the broadband department to get their act together. They're going to start building and just count on that money, and whether that's going to end up in a lawsuit or not, somewhere down the road, who knows? But and then another Port of Ridgeville, they kind of sound like, Chris, they're doing where they are the construction company. They're hiring construction people. They don't have that outside layer, that they're used to doing projects where you hire construction people to build this, build that.
Yeah.
And they just did a major build. It's like 2 weeks away from connecting a level 3 node at Interstate 5 north of Ridgefield down to WSU Vancouver campus a couple of miles away. And what was interesting, the big hang up time-wise was the need to partner with a city water entity to lay fiber in a trench that they had open to do some water pipe work. Getting that, nailed down, which brings up the issue of, what is, that's where the policies of, the county and the towns can impact, infrastructure projects, making sure we coordinate. If you're going to dig a hole in the ground, can you put pipe in there that you can run fiber later on? And just not have that additional cost of trenching, which is expensive. So there's ways to partner in future projects that, it's all about partnerships, partnering with Petrichor, all the people that partner during the curb grant. We don't expect to have to lift the load on our end of the log. We can have somebody carry the other end of the log. So it's relationships and partnerships are so important. So, okay, any other questions on broadband? Other than we see a whole lot of information coming down the road in August and whatnot. Are we ready to move on to 10.2? David, Patrick, we're good. Okay. Okay, Wharf general update is 10.2.
Yeah, so we start off with fire suppression. So I did speak with commercial fire, and they were just on their back burner right now. I think they got most of their parts in to do this final leg underneath the Wharf building. I reach out to them about every 3 weeks. Where are we? Still waiting for parts. So I guess there's just some specialty couplers and things they're just waiting on. So a little frustrating. In fact, their accountant contacted me the other day and said, hey, we need to have the retention release. I said, absolutely not. You haven't finished the job. And then she looked at it and said, oh my gosh, we haven't. So that's where we are with the fire suppression. Please keep in mind it's at 100% functionality, but it'd be nice to get this done since it's going well into 2 years, right? The main thing I want to talk about with the Wharf is where we are with our permit for piles and caps first. As you know, Jerry retired. Doug has done a great job finishing up the emergency declaration application. It is done and ready to go. He got a hold of a gentleman, Matthew, I forget his last name, Erickson, I forget, at the Corps, who has been extremely responsive. Whenever we sent an email, right back. Here's where we stand. With the Corps, they are doing a set of projects, and I forget what it was, but it's across the country. And when that set of permits, kind of like the nearshore programmatic review that NIMS is suggesting, is done, the Port of Coupeville will be assigned a new Corps rep. Right now, we do not have a rep assigned to us right now. He was very transparent and said, when we get back and we assign a agent to the Port of Coupeville, you are 19 on the list. Now that NIMS and the Corps are working tighter together with this nearshore programmatic program, they are having to communicate back and forth continuously now, which is a good thing. Doug got a hold of someone at NIMS and was able to find out that we are 109th on the list for this nearshore programmatic review. The application and the mitigation calculator that, did you hit silence on that thing? Oh, it's keep going. The mitigation calculator that Doug reworked last time was right on the money. NIMS likes it. We were also told by Representative NIMS that they know who we are. They are well aware of the Port of Coupeville and the Coupeville Wharf. Well aware. In fact, Fox 13 just emailed me last night and said, we understand that you're one of the sensitive projects that are being held up and they want to do an interview, but I'm very skeptical about doing something like that. And here is why. We were told by both the Corps and NIMS that we are going to try to get to you and try to get this nearshore programmatic approach going by the end of August. So the goal right now, or the plan right now, is if we do not hear from either the Corps or NIMS by the end of August on this process. Then we wait for the Corps to assign us a rep and we go for the emergency declaration, which I think we will qualify for, and I think the Corps will pass. That's our impression after speaking with them. The Corps has said we would really prefer that you guys go through the nearshore programmatic review. That is going to be a good program. And once you're in it, then it should go pretty quickly, but we've heard that before. So we're on the radar. I think we've done an excellent job of staying on their radar. I mean, I've been called by the head of PR from NOAA. We've been in the paper. We're in the Seattle Times. We're now looking to do something on Fox 13. So we got to be careful, right? So I don't, now at this point, I've pushed and pushed and pushed. I've had their head of PR say, you know, hey, man, we're going to get you, just stop. But we got to be careful now. We don't want to burn any bridges. So we're in the best position we can be in as a port as far as what we can do to affect this system. We're not the only ones. Nichols Brothers is I think they were 9th or 11th on that list out of 109. So that's all I can share with you right now.
Chris, is there any kind of more firm timeline on this at this point? Or are we just
through August, and they are hoping that at that point, the nearshore programmatic from NIMS will kick in. And again, they're very well of us, they're very aware of us, but that's the only timeline they would give us, David. The Corps said, do not submit the emergency declaration, wait until the end of August, and so we can at least try to get you assigned a rep from the Corps, because that can't go forward at all without a rep. Jerry was great because he knew our project. He was supportive of the project, and he was willing to hand carry that up the ladder. Now we have no one to do that. But I appreciate this Matthew and how well he communicates with us and just tells it like it is. So that's where we are. Again, I keep trying to give you guys good news, but it seems to roll back, but I'm going to stay positive. We hired 2D as-built to do an official as-built of the wharf building. That is going to be finalized this week. And then we'll have time to review it. I will be leaving, I'll be riding out of here tomorrow afternoon. But Kelly's going to take a look at it and go over it with Danielle. And then when I get back, if they see discrepancies, we'll review it and we'll get that finalized. Once that's finalized, I will be sending that over to Swenson Faget, who will use that as-built and tack on. They'll come out to the wharf and they will actually do the engineering study of the roof itself, just the roof part. Because when we go to do the roof replacement, we are going to have to add a construction component to it. And it'll probably be bid separately to fix that valley rafter issue and any other structural issues in that roof. So that's the next step, but we are moving forward with roof replacement and roof repair and gutter replacement.
So do we have a timeline on that, Chris, in terms of going to bid for that job?
No, I don't, because we have to get the as-built back. We have to approve them. Then we send them over to SSF and then have them build on more engineering plans for the roof structure. And then from there, SSF will put together an engineering package where we go out to bid.
And so they will develop the bid package for that?
Well, they're going to develop the engineering pack for it and help with some of the verbiage. I'm going to do as much of the lifting as I possibly can. But they have to do it. It has to be an engineering packet where all the bidders,
right,
you click on that and say, okay, this is what I bid to do that. And I will tell you that Brian from Red's Roofing, as soon as that article hit the paper last month, he called me and said, we want that job. And I said, then go to the MRC and get on their small works roster because you will not be on the bid list if you don't do that. And he said he would have that done within 48 hours. So there's a lot of interest in getting that done.
So it'll be a two-part bid, is that correct?
Yeah, you're gonna have to have
Two separate bids, is not two parts, but two separate.
Yeah, two separate bids. One for the construction, the structure of the roof, And it may not be needed, I don't know, but to me it does, because the valley rafter is like sunk about 16 inches, 12 inches. So there'll be two different bid packets for that, construction and roof.
And do you know at this point whether all the sheeting will have to be removed from the roof, or just parts of that, or?
Yes, no, the plan is to remove the sheeting, because that hasn't done in a long time. But they may take some off and find out that sheeting is in good shape. They will not replace that. But again, this is all preliminary, David. But they will definitely have to open that roof up and get in there. And I don't know how they're gonna do it, to be quite honest. And obviously, we don't want to do this in the summertime, which we couldn't do it anyways. It takes a while to get this process done. But if they do this, let's say in early fall, and open that roof up, you know, they're gonna have to work quick. And again, I'll know more once SSF actually says, here's what is needed to stabilize the roof.
Okay.
And then you mentioned stabilization, that kicks into the next one, which is the walls. Once the as-built is done and SSF goes over that, then we will create a bidding packet for the stabilization of the walls. Now, again, that money that we got for that, $303,000, that's sitting in the DAP account, that expires in June of 2023. So we can't afford to wait. We got to get going on it. So, I'll just quickly touch on the benches. So we've walked that area, David, especially after you and I had an email exchange, and we are going to hold off on at least one of the benches that are near the tanks. Kelly is also working on getting bids to replace the tanks. She has made contact with the department, with EPA, the Department of Ecology, and what it came down to with the town of Coupeville, and there is no one telling us at this point, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no one telling us that we could not replace those tanks. So Kelly's working on getting bids for those, because, you know, obviously fixing the tank is close to 80 grand. You have one vendor saying, don't do it. It won't last a year, 5 years tops. You have another vendor says, I've done 100 of these and I guarantee you 20 years. But we want to present to the board the other option. Dig them up, get them the heck out of here. The companies no longer exist, and look at replacing them. And no one has told us, no, there's no reason why you couldn't replace those tanks. So Kelly's working on that bit. So that's where we are with the fuel system.
Are we getting any references from other ports that have fuel tanks about?
I've gone over that with Kelly, and she's supposed to be calling other ports, trying to find vendors. She started off with AMO, right? Because they are very well connected. And it's just a matter of making those phone calls and starting to aggressively contact ports and vendors to get us a bid. It's hard. It's like the holding tank, you know, with the maceration units under the wharf. Trying to find someone who does that, you know. So, but anyways, that's where we are right now.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as we talked about the bathrooms, we have a good crew down there. Again, Danielle, Brian, and Tyga. What a great team down there. They're doing such an excellent job. I will let you know that last weekend, an elderly lady, I went to go sit down on one of our benches, and her son claimed that the bench tilted and she slid off. And was taken to the hospital. I got a call from the hospital yesterday, or Kristen called me yesterday saying, hey, they're calling to see where they send the bill. And I said, no, no, they have to file an insurance claim. After this happened, Danielle went to the tape. They couldn't see because there's a big umbrella over the table. Danielle and Ty then proceeded, who weighed probably 30% more than the person who fell, to sit on the edge of that bench, and it didn't budge. These people they could barely speak English. I don't know what country they were from. I don't know if anything's going to come of it, but I thought I'll just let the board know.
Is this a bench for one of the picnic tables?
Yeah, on the back deck, the big one.
Aren't those tables
Attached to the
and benches
table.
all one piece?
They're all one piece, but most of the benches are attached to the deck, and some were not. But again, when this happened, Danielle, they had two people sit on the edge of that bench. That's a lot, you know, that was more weight than the person. I think the person went to sit down and just missed and fell. Because there's no way, I was actually sitting on the edge of that bench with Rick Larson before anyone got there. That thing is solid. So I'm not concerned about it. You know, they were wanting us to cover the medical expenses, but no, we don't do that. They need to file a claim with our insurance company and go through that process. So Danielle is waiting to hear back from them if they contact us back. I just thought I'd let the board know. So outside of that, we are, I'd like to go back. Well, we are having a poster printed up with the history. I think I sent you guys that email. So we are going to use fast signs in Everett. They're going to be the ones that are doing all of our highway signs at the Green Bank Farm. Where actually I went through the MRSC, I validated that if we take a certain path, the port can pay to replace all those individual signs at the highway. So we're going to do that. We're excited about getting that updated because that sign looks really crappy right now. It's not even complete. So we're working on that. Little sidebar there, sorry. As far as the wharf, that's what I have. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question about 24 Front Street. Going back to the little sinkhole or whatever it was. I'm wondering if we should investigate how well that building is supported as a whole.
Yeah.
Considering that, and make sure that that building is not gonna, I mean, all of Front Street, especially the oldest parts of Front Street, are in questionable condition. It loses support every year, as you know, if you walk out Front Street toward the south, they've had to close down that lane of traffic, so it's only a one-way street now. And so that affects all of Front Street. And I just think we should take a look at having somebody seriously investigate the condition of the supports for that building.
Yeah, David, that's actually on the capital finance plan when we executed the industrial development district. It's not slotted for this year. As you know, we're trying to get the other priorities. But yeah, that is one of the projects that we'll probably tackle probably late next year. I want to get the piles and caps done. But yeah, the sinkhole issue, because I was down there the first time that happened when that pipe burst and it opened all that up. It's just that pipe runs along Rockville, I think it is, and Kelly was down there as well. You got to climb underneath. Paul did a great job filling it back in, but if that pipe were to leak again, or we have a super heavy rain, it could fall in again. I don't think we're in any danger with the building itself, but we definitely, I'm going to get Kelly LaFave out there to do an engineering assessment on it and have them come in and test the piles, and as well as the basement. That whole structure, man, that basement.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that that's an important historic structure, and it's in our purview to keep it. So
Yeah.
I think that initial work on determining its condition can begin anytime, and I think the sooner the better, personally.
Okay. Okay. I met it when the Vales did their pile work. I asked him, how did they get their permit in a year? And he said, because they didn't have to go through the deep depths process because nothing was done in the water, it was all done from the shore. And I talked to them and I pointed out, you think this could be the same thing with 24th Front Street? This was last year, and they said, absolutely. So I'm very hopeful, and I can contact Kelly and see if he's willing to come in and do an assessment on that.
Well, I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that, but that's my feeling. So
Sounds good, David.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's,
To me, that kind
and
of
it's-
whole situation is an indicator of potential problems. And
Yeah.
I think it was Kelly, our Kelly, who mentioned the fact that that whole thing is being held up by rotting wood. So,
Hmm.
you know, to get under there and determine what needs to be done and get that on our schedule is, I think, important. So.
Yeah, I think the really scary part right now is from the sidewalk. That's really what's being held up. The building itself looked pretty good when we were down under there, but I'm no engineer and I think it's smart to do
Well,
that.
the northwest corner of that building has been in question for more than 10 years now. So,
Hmm.
I mean, there was a port engineering, I don't know if there was actually an engineering study or just there was an engineering question that was developed more than 10 years ago. And I think there was some engineering done on that corner, which is something that you guys might want to reach into the archives and if you can find them.
Would this also give us an opportunity to determine what of that sidewalk area is our responsibility? Because that's going to be a significant improvement that's going to have to happen.
As the sidewalk in front of 24 Front Street?
The sidewalk really to the side. They're at the building. I didn't get down under that, but I got to the side where we had that hole develop. And the question is, what part of that is our responsibility to do? I spoke with the town and she said they don't have any responsibility. And so I think it'd be smart.
Do we know where the line is between our property and the Vale property?
He says one thing. He says that it's the rail towards that's on his side of the property. So his deck is technically in our area.
Well, that's an easy survey.
Yeah, I think it might be smart just for us to know for sure. And there may be something I haven't been able to start digging into that one yet, but I think to me, that's going to be the first fail that's going to happen, is that wooden structure that's holding up the sidewalk there.
Yeah. Well, if it involves getting a survey to determine that line, that's insurance.
pins put in on the survey that pins the actual corners from the
Yeah.
legal description.
Yep.
Huh.
Then we would know the answer to that question. That's a less than $2,000 investment.
Kelly, you want to put that on your list? I think it's a good starting point. Know where our four corners are.
Maybe the Vales would like to split the cost with us.
I doubt that. Great people, but I doubt that.
Just a thought.
It's a thought, in her task, right?
Okay, are we ready to move on from 10.2?
Yes.
So, David?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Item 11 is our second public comment. The chairs are still empty. Chris, are there any,
We're public in attendance.
okay. Item 12, presiding officers report. Yeah, you know, I can either do it now or in commissioner discussion. I'll just do it in commissioner discussion. So let's go to item 13, committee reports. You know, I did share that broadband, WPPA broadband committee report in a hard copy version. Please look at it. It is kind of, the key takeaway is that they finally have Endurus, because so many ports are building infrastructure, broadband infrastructure, that they're getting, Endurus is getting more active with defining how they will cover that as under property. that they will set up a $500,000 per occurrence on a broadband, repair with a $2 million cap. My comment during that WPPA meeting was, it sounded like a big number. And then they said, yeah, but in like some of these wildfires that are wiping out, the fiber optic line in a wildfire in like California, places like that, that's where you get the big numbers show up. And so knock on wood, I think we're not as wildfire prone on Whidbey Island. They did Endurus, the guy from Endurus that was doing the report on how they're September 1st, they will actually have broadband built into their offering of coverage. And their history was, when they looked at their history, is there was only one $30,000 claim where a subcontractor, cut through a fiber line somewhere that was owned by a port. And I'm not even sure that was in the state. I think they had to go out of state to find that. So anyway, it sounds like Endurus is catching up to the fact that, ports are involved with broadband and are going to have insurance coverage available at the same rate that you would insure Front Street or any other, real property. They're not going to have some exotic claim, but they're going to watch it for a year and see if it needs like a different kind of rating instead of being 30 cents per $100, whatever they rate, property for ports. So anyway, that was my broadband activity. So David, you sent us a report on Island Transit.
I sent you a report on the IRTPO meeting. The COG meeting for month of June was canceled. I would just encourage Chris and or Kelly to stay in touch with probably Commissioner Bacon's office would be the best place to find out about that. The position that's been created, although I'm sure it has not. I'm sure it has not been filled at this point, but the position of a person to help entities with finding and developing grants through the IIJW or IIJA or whatever it's called. The more, if I hear more, I'll let you know, obviously. So, but I thought that was the most relevant thing for the port from the IRTPO meeting.
I did read your report, David. Could you elaborate on that there seemed to be some discussion about the assets that are available to help people on their healthcare or medical needs? What was that discussion about?
So that has to do with the Human Services Transportation Plan. Is that what you're asking about, John?
I believe so.
So that's a criteria for every county within the state to help people who have trouble getting around, get around so that they can work and have doctor appointments. And so I don't know how often that plan is redone or recreated, but I sent you a copy of the first draft of that plan. It's very extensive and deals with that part of the county's human services.
So you sent a copy of what now? It was
I sent an attachment of the first draft of that Human Services Transportation Plan.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm looking at it now. So,
It's quite extensive.
yeah, like I will say in some of my new ventures, healthcare wise, I'm being shocked and exposed that some of the elderly, between a combination of lack of availability of doctors willing to take new patients, being limited, and them being nearly homebound,
Yeah,
they're dependent on friends. If they don't have any relatives here, to get them down to clinics, if they can find a clinic even accepting a new patient. I mean, healthcare is getting less than ideal on Whidbey Island.
healthcare
I
is getting
mean,
less than ideal everywhere.
everywhere, but I mean, we're really hammered. And it's, so you're like, well, I'll just escape the island and get on a ferry and go get healthcare. And that's assuming you can get on the ferry. So, and get back in
Well,
a way.
my partner is currently in Mount Vernon getting a bone scan. So,
Wow.
and she had to wait about 4 weeks for that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's
So,
just regular maintenance.
So, anything you can share about the airport and what you're hearing from the facilities guy?
I have not heard anything from the facilities guy except by way of Don Meehan, who talked with him evidently last week. And I believe, according to Mr. Meehan's report, they are meeting today.
They being the county commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that he and the county commissioners are meeting today to discuss the possibility of submitting a bid for that property.
Okay.
But that's just hearsay at this point. So.
It has not, the airport has not sold as of yet.
Not to my knowledge.
Yep.
I think I sent my response. Chris, you
Yeah, you copied me on it, and I'm
yeah,
pretty,
and I think I copied everybody on it.
you were very clear.
And I have, since that's the last communication that has existed between me and the county. And I don't know if he was on vacation or I don't know what. So anyway.
Well, I did end up speaking to Don because, he can't help himself and, I can't refuse a call. And so we ended up speaking while he was over in, gassing up his plane over in Arlington. I returned his call. He said it was $8 a gallon over there. But it sounded like, he had to he was being ignored by the facilities manager. So finally he just said, the hell with it, and walked down and walked in his office and said, let's talk.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes you have to do that. If you're getting ignored.
From my perspective, it's in their court and bothering them at this point isn't going to get us anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
I think it sounded like from Don that it wasn't in the facility manager's job description when he was hired, to go out and buy stuff like big $1 million projects. So I think he's kind of like going, really? I'm supposed to put a quote together or make a offer? So he needs direction from the county commissioners. Is one thing to say, hey.
I believe it's today, but it might have been yesterday. That they were
I think
supposed
it
to
is.
meet with one another. So
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on your plate?
nope.
So, just be aware, I'm going to go to a old goats meeting down at Holmes Harbor Rod and Gun Club, and the interim CEO of Whidbey Health is going to be speaking to the community there.
Old Goats, is that an actual organization?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
People with gray hair, I guess.
well,
So I've gone to one of their meetings and it was pretty interesting. And so when I saw this one, I said, sign me up, since it's healthcare related. So we'll see what the interim CEO of Quibi Health is going to say about where they're at, even though it's not something for a per diem. It's just, I gotta go hear this
it'll
guy
be
talk.
interesting to see how it compares with what the interim CFO had to say at his when he left the organization a month ago.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that takes care of item 13. Item 14 is just commissioner rambling discussions. So Patrick, I sent you that information about Home Share Oregon and Silvernest. Did you get that?
No, I'll need to go in and check. Home
Okay.
share in what?
Home Share Oregon, HSO, collaboration between nonprofit and for-profit and government agencies using a home sharing platform to address housing crisis.
I'll
Yeah,
go in and check that, see, make sure I read through that.
yeah, it's kind of a different slant on how to get, a roof over people's head.
Mhm.
And it got me to thinking that, at some point we are going to cart off the caretaker's cottage, right, Chris?
It's in the future.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that if we put a, structurally compatible modular housing unit on that foundation, or better foundation, obviously, but have all the utilities that are there to hook it up and make it like a 3-bedroom or even a 2-story modular unit, we could be part of the affordable housing workforce solution just by putting the right building on that foundation or that space, and then, maybe using a housing sharing process to keep people have a roof over their head. So,
Yes, we are this week.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well,
Patrick, David?
I have two things. One is a continuation of that question. I meant to ask this during the executive director's report regarding the caretaker's cottage at the farm. What is the status of that situation?
We removed one of the failing structures on the side and got that taken away. But honestly, when the summer hits, David, we're so stretched thin. So right now it's on hold. Kelly has it on her list to contact Nichols Brothers and try to figure out someone who could actually sell the building and move it. So that's on her list that she's working on. That's really all where we are right now on it. Right now, Paul is knee deep in starting the mowing season.
But the building is secure and we haven't had any trouble with.
We have not had any trouble. No, the building is pretty much emptied out. Kelly, Shelley, and Paul did a great job really getting almost everything out of there. We've even repurposed a lot of things that were donated to the port, such as the couch up in the bride's room. But no more issues. I'm pretty sure power has been turned off to the unit. That whole thing has been closed out. So we're just, yeah.
I think Kelly needs to be aware that, Greenbank Farm contributed a similar building down to Bayview. It was called a Sears building, where these were kits that, you bought through the mail, a kit to build a home. And that got moved down and is still in use down, I think, by Goosefoot, down in Bayview.
I've had meetings in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, the Coupeville Rec Hall is a building that was over at the dam, used for housing dam workers. It got moved to Coupeville. So this whole concept of picking up houses and buildings and moving around the state is, you know, pretty common over the years.
Yeah, the
Is that-
inspector's concern about moving that house was that there was no foundation there and all the substructure was rotted. So you try to pick it up, it would just disintegrate.
Oh.
So you would have to probably build a whole new foundation structure or something to tie it in to be moved. But that's my first question to Nichols is what condition does it need to be in order to be moved? And what would it take? What would be the cost trade-off to shore it up until it could be moved?
You know, if we could do something like that, I think that would be preferred, you know, because there are conservation folk, for whatever reason, you know, that we can label it as such that it's been conserved and used for another purpose.
Okay,
versus
any other
just-
discussion?
So the second part of that for me at the farm was, Chris mentioned in an email this week or late last week about suspending next month's or our second meeting of this month. And we had talked in a previous meeting about having a workshop regarding the farm's future. And I'm wondering if that would be an appropriate point to have that discussion.
The reason I suggested that was I come back on late that Saturday night before the meeting. I'm gonna do my best not to work while I'm gone, which means I'm gonna come back to 600-700 emails, probably more than that. So I feel very pressed for
Right,
time.
and that's my point. And if we just set that meeting aside for a workshop to discuss as a discussion for the future of the farm, as we had discussed in a previous meeting, then that would relieve you from having to actually put a agenda together other than that agenda.
Yeah, so the board would be driving the workshop, right?
Yeah,
So there's no payroll decisions made during that meeting? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, payroll is not a part of the meetings anymore. Those are done on a separate system. Now, there would be, the lost opportunity for an AP. For an AP. What we could do, because getting invoices to Dawn could be done while I'm gone, and then I would just run over there on Monday and get them all signed, is we would just do a regular meeting with one agenda item and not even call it a workshop. Just have one agenda item and have you guys discuss it. I could easily set that up.
I don't know what the other commissioners think about that, but I just thought that was one opportunity. The other side of that for me, of course, is like, if we don't have that meeting, it's okay with me because it's a busy time of year for me, so. But I think we should decide that at this juncture if we're not going to have a meeting.
If I may, I think the idea of discussing the Green Bank Farm is a good one. I don't see it as a vital high priority right now, because we have so much going on at the farm right now, so many projects at the work as well. I think it's a conversation that I'd love to have that. But maybe that could be a conversation that is more in the wintertime or fall when things, as far as maintenance wise, slow down a little bit here. I'm not sure. I just thought I would throw it out there. I could easily put together what
I view it as a commissioner discussion. I don't know that it has a whole lot to do with staff other than, the commissioners kind of consolidating thoughts and maybe reporting to staff. I don't know. And again, I just thought that that would relieve you from having to create an agenda. But if the other commissioners want to suspend the meeting, cancel the meeting for the second part of July, I don't have any problem with that. I just think that we need to make that public.
I could go either way, David.
One way or
Patrick, what are you thinking?
I think we could cancel.
Right.
But I'm open either way too.
So if there's nothing pressing for that meeting, I move that we cancel the second meeting in July and rejoin in the first meeting in August.
Second it.
Yep.
I second the motion. So as long as there's nothing that we're overlooking, in terms of paying bills and things we're kind of needing to do, then that's, I'm certainly busy too. So let's all, just reconvene in August, in the, second Wednesday of August,
I think it's August 10th.
August 6th.
So does
No.
that mean, that means no bills are gonna get paid in that interim?
No, which is what we've been doing for 54 years.
Yeah, it's just been nice to have them paid. It's helping us with our vendors.
Yeah, but when we have a late meeting, Kelly, like on the 13th, like we do today, it's a much shorter time span and all our major bills get in by then. So when Dawn sent me an email yesterday saying, or last week saying, hey, here are the major bills missing, every one of those bills got in the system this time. So I think it would just be smaller stuff that comes in. None of the major vendors will have an issue.
So that would be August 10th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that point, just to let you know, Seth and the Petrichor team will be presenting to the board to give you a full update, run through everything today. So that is planned for the 10th in regards to the broadband project. And I may even have Doug Thompson on the 10th as well come in, give an update as well, just so you can maybe hear some information from him.
We'd be canceling our July 27th meeting.
So we have a motion on the table with a second, John, just to remind you.
Okay, then I'm in favor of canceling the July 27th court meeting and reconvening our next meeting on August the 10th. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. And with that, is there no other issues in front of us?
No?
I just want to give you a quick update. We've been waiting since April to get a vendor in for the HVAC system at Barn A, and he stood us up this morning.
Is that for the HVAC or the heaters?
The heaters.
The heaters, okay.
Is this the heaters in the barn itself?
Yep,
The big propane heaters?
yep. We've been working since April to get somebody out there. It's so frustrating.
Maybe we should start looking at an alternative form of heating that space.
We already did. I did that like 2 years ago. We looked at a heat pump. We looked at wall units. The best way to heat that barn is through those propane heaters.
Yeah, we just had a vendor tell us that these are the best way to heat this space.
Really?
Yeah. And what it is really, David, is a couple of it.
Because of the high ceilings in the barn,
Yeah, just the efficiency
the
of it.
openness of the barn itself.
Yeah. And it's really the ductwork. It's just the empty ductwork that carries the heat and the moisture out. They just rusted through. That's really a bummer to hear. I did have movement in the barn at 7:30 in the morning, but I don't know who that was. So
It's kind of old technology, isn't it, Chris?
Who is the vendor?
Marshall's.
Marshall, they've done our systems in the
Yeah.
past. So
Yep, and we've had Island Heating, I think, came out, and he was all gung ho to do our job. Haven't heard from him, and I bet I've called him 6 times. Haven't heard from him in 3 months.
I called him.
Welcome to,
Once he heard it was a prevailing wage job, he bailed. He said, nope, not gonna deal with it.
welcome to Whitby.
Well, Kelly, obviously reach out to Marshall's, right? Find out what happened.
We already have, Paul and I both called him.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
That's a bummer. Dang it. Okay.
Well, on that usual weird note about trying to get work done on Whidbey Island, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 11:29, 11:30, at 11:30. Bye, everybody. Stay out of trouble.
Thank you.
Bye, enjoy the month.
Bye.
Yep.